This AskReddit user asks, "Children of a Karen, what is it like?" My mother's name is Karen, but she is the opposite of the stereotypical Karen. She's awesome. A Karen, if you will. A Karen. I always think about how nice my mom is. Sometimes she's too nice. I probably could have used more consistent discipline when younger. The biggest complaint is she tries to help too much, and I can't even get something out of the fridge without her being right there, sort of butting in to help or ask what I need, which takes far longer than me just doing my own thing. I feel bad asking to just be left alone to tie my own shoes, etc., because she'd basically still try to help do that just because she's so nice all the time. When I was a child, everything was someone else's fault. We'd speak to managers in stores, restaurants, etc. When I came of age, I joined the military and moved away as fast as possible. As an adult, my relationship with her was terrible. I was so frustrated by her asking me to come back to visit her area every time we talked, that I just stopped talking to her. Something particularly interesting had happened this past year. I went home to see my grandma on Dad's side as she was passing. I called my mom and told her I was taking an emergency trip and would be in the area but wouldn't have time to see her. Her response? "That's fine. I understand your family needs you." Quote. I was beside myself. I had known that she was working on herself for a while. But living so far away and speaking so little, I hadn't witnessed it. 5 years ago, she would have demanded that I leave my dying grandma to come see her. I came back to the area the next month and we discussed it more. She said that she realized that a lot of problems in her life and a lot of the unhappiness stems from selfishness. I am incredibly proud of the changes she's made in her life. And it has forced me to reevaluate my own actions pertaining to our strained relationship and my life as a whole. And I've come to a conclusion. I'm just like her. I'm just like her. I relate to this on a spiritual level. My mother has the same issues with her mother that I have with her. And I know if I have kids, I'm just going to repeat the cycle. So I refuse to have children just in case I'm never able to exorcise that demon. My best friend has had a terrible relationship with her mother for as long as I have known her. We're almost 30 now, so about 18 years. I won't go into details, but I understand why she never got along with her mom. Her mom also has a terrible relationship with her mother for the same reasons. My friend has an 18-month-old and is currently pregnant with her second. When her first child was born, she suffered from postpartum depression and found it difficult to bond with her baby. Luckily, her husband and in-laws were very supportive and she ended up in therapy. Her therapist helped her to understand that she found it difficult to bond because she never had a good motherly role model and therefore wasn't sure how to be a mother. I'm sure there was more to it than that, but seeing a therapist has really helped her become the mother she wants to be and accept that her own mother won't change, so just to accept how she is and move on. My point is that she is a great mother to her baby and she has absolutely managed to break the cycle. I'm not saying don't worry, you'll be great mom, go have kids. I'm saying that you won't necessarily repeat the cycle if you already know what the problem is. That being said, I know absolutely nothing about your personal situation, so feel free to take this with a pinch of salt. Sorry if this is too nosy. You are very brave to take such a candid look at yourself and your mother. And if you are that courageous, you are not like your mother. My mom once had some strong Karen tendencies. But she started channeling that Karen energy into activism, community service, and advocating for people, and it morphed into assertiveness and tenacity rather than rudeness. Honestly, she's an inspiration to me. Because she took what was an issue for her and turned it into something positive that helps others. I have no idea who is worse between my father, my mother, my oldest sister and my older sister. Dad will belittle anyone who crosses him, demanding to speak to managers, threatening litigation, calls to authorities, etc. He is always concerned that somebody is out to get him and is extremely cautious of scammers. Door-to-door solicitors or people calling are in for a treat if they are sorry enough to get him. Customer representatives over the phone have no idea how to manage him. He is surprisingly very nice when things are going smooth though. Mom is a textbook restaurant Karen. She is fortunately nice about it. But will request changes, comments on everything, etc. But she is impossible to please. I get it when I do anything for her. Oldest sister has my dad's temper and my mom's demands. Without either of their niceness. Plus she is well married, so she is insanely entitled. Older sister is just temper. Will just yell at people. They are my family and I love them. But I hate it when I see any of their awful ways in me. Hopefully Karen shaming will get them soon and they understand the wrong of their ways. Probably your oldest sister LMAO. That's an interesting family dynamic though. None of them are perfect. But all of them have their redeeming traits. True. It's crazy how much I love them and hate them at the same time. I grew up in Texas but my parents are originally from Tennessee. When we were visiting Tennessee once, she remarked about how few Tennessee state flags were flown compared to the number that you see in Texas. So she thought they could use a little more state pride. She wrote letters to a few congressmen and I think even the governor's office to tell them to fly more flags. The next time we visited she'd point out every Tennessee flag we saw. Obviously you couldn't prove it was because of her. But admittedly there were a lot more that trip. TL. Doctor, my mom asked to speak with the manager of a whole state and got her way. My mom is a Karen to service people sometimes. She can range from mildly rude to a total monster at times. I used to make excuses. Like one time when she worked as a realtor and in the middle of buying something retail. Stepped away a bit to take a phone call. The lady had this obvious, "Are you kidding?" That couldn't wait another minute to finish this kinda expression. I tried to smooth it over like, "Oh sorry. She's at work always even when she's not at work" kinda thing. Lady responded, "It's still rude," and TBH that was the first moment I realized, yeah. My mom is rude. Now if she's unreasonable I straight up tell her off. Usually ends in the two of us fighting and me apologizing to whoever just got yelled at. The worst was after my grandma died. She took her feelings out on everyone. After her being rude to a waitress for no reason. My brother told me to ease up since she just lost her mom. I replied, "Every one of us here just lost a person we love, but they gives her no right to treat others like CP. Especially for no reason." My dad is a male Karen. I always hated listening to him call customer service on the phone. Because he's such a complete AE to whoever is just trying to do their job. My dad used to help obvious first-time food servers who messed up by lecturing them. Telling on them to their boss. And then stiffing them on the tip. He always justified it with a story about how once in the 90s he actually had a boss thank him for doing it because his staff sucked. It was a very unique situation. I always felt so bad for the servers who were humiliated. Because of that I always tip well as an adult. Out of this childhood guilt I carry. This is the ST that kills me too. Like bro. You aren't helping or teaching anyone. You're just being an AE. Did you get in the habit of slipping these guys a $10 on the sly? My mom will always want to see the manager for whatever slight thing. Once she waited in line of the service desk for something like half an hour because she thought she was overcharged a few cents for 2 bottles of dish liquid that was on sale. Then she gets up there to complain and she discovers that she was actually undercharged quite a bit. So she complained about not paying enough and the manager said he would have to write up the cashier for the undercharge but she can have the items. Like who wastes that much of their life on this stuff? She picked me up from the airport when I was coming back from a trip to apply to graduate school and she accidentally parked in the overnight lot. When she went through the gate the attendant said, $20. She blew up and threw an unholy fit. The entire car was shaking. She was going to get them fired somehow. I was just trying not make eye contact as I was really embarrassed by this. I am bound for graduate school and my white trash mother is screaming at parking lot attendants because she parked in the wrong lot. The attendants finally just raised the gate and she gunned it out of the lot. And to this day she brings up this story as if it was a win. Lots of nodding along and desperately searching for an opportunity to make a joke that lightens the mood or changes the subject. Very rarely am I asked outright for my thoughts, and when I am, I make an absurd joke to make it clear I have no interest in discussing it. She asked me how I voted once, so I said I was confused by the ballot, so I just checked everything off. That's what I was supposed to do, right? I also don't make a lot of eye contact during those topics. And especially if I'm not the only one there, I kind of distance myself a little. Engage with my nieces or the dog or something until I hear the topic has changed. I learned to end arguments by saying, "You're right. You're right. Prove it." I have an incredibly politically opinionated friend who does nothing but talk about politics, usually stirring st up with controversial statements. The more you engage him, the more he talks about it. I found out recently the only way to shut him up is, "You're right." Heard once that the worst part of being mature is walking away knowing that the other side thinks they're right still. My dad is a Karen. KFC once forgot to put barbecue sauce in our order and he spent a full half-hour writing an angry email. Next time I went in with him to get KFC, he had a printout to scan for store credit. He also enjoys yelling at CS reps on the phone, especially when they're in a foreign call center. To be fair to him, he yells on the phone even when he's being happy. I can hear him from outside the house. But even if it's not malicious, there's no way it doesn't come across that way on the other end. I've called Walmart to apologize for her. My mom is somewhat of a Karen, mostly in regards to restaurants. And I have an anxiety disorder. It's a combination made in HL. The anxiety can be there. Because your mom's a Karen. It's a combination made all over the world. HL, yeah man. I'm 27 and I still get nightmares about getting screamed at because I forgot to run the dishwasher or some dumb st. My mom could rant and rave for hours. As long as it took for me to burst into tears. That seemed to be what pacified her. When I look back at it, wow. Sometimes it was a legit screw up. Sometimes I just didn't clean the bathroom or fold towels the way she wanted me to. My mom really was named Karen. She was the most awesome person on the planet. Miss you, Mom. My mom was slowly treading down the path to Karenhood. I would just hang my head and be embarrassed. But I didn't really know why it was so wrong. Well, a few years in retail fixed that. Write the FK up. So when that ST started up again, I calmly explained that she's getting pissy at the wrong person and has to follow the same rules everyone else does. She shouldn't expect special treatment just because she's angry. Fortunately, she took the road less traveled and made an effort to be more understanding and calm. My sister is a Karen in recovery. And her teenage kids are mortified by her. They had a Karen intervention with her a few months ago. And pointed out that about 1 out of every 3 visits to a restaurant results in a meal or a drink sent back. And about 1 in 10 results in a conversation with the manager. Unresolved complaints over the phone practically have a pre-written script. This is unacceptable. Poor customer service, etc. She's trying to be more self-aware because she now recognizes that not only can her behavior be embarrassing, but she's a Karen caricature. If someone described the typical Karen by looks, age, race, tone of voice, social standing, they would be describing her to a T. Sure, it's Karen shaming, but we're living in a society here. There's literally nothing wrong with Karen shaming. Unless you are a Karen by name only. I've known some perfectly lovely Karens. Never met a Chad. so they may be every bit the douche that the internet says. Schrodinger's Chad. I have an Aunt Karen and I'm pretty sure we could nominate the woman for sainthood. The only time I've ever so much as heard her raise her voice was when I wanted to pay for my portion of the tab at the restaurant we were eating at and she quiet shouted absolutely not at me. It was definitely one of those times where the calmest person raises their voice so rarely that you just immediately back down when it happens. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.